It's only like 30% about him, I promise. Mario Kart World looks like an amazing game, and I'm not gonna pretend that isn't the case. Sorry if that's not what you were looking for here. I mean, the surrounding context makes the responses gotten more than reasonable, but in terms of what the game itself is presenting me, yeah, I'm sold. Mario Kart 8, while an excellent game, has absolutely run its course for me. Take what was previously the longest stretch between these games, double it, and it's still not touching the weight between 8 and World. While it was rejuvenated by 8 Deluxe, and then again by the Booster Course Pass, having the same primary Mario Kart experience for over a decade was not ideal, and I've definitely felt the diminishing returns recently that one would expect from playing a game for 11 years straight. So when the Switch 2 hype was in full swing and we knew we'd finally be seeing a new Mario Kart alongside it, I had one singular hope. Something different, something fresh. Follow in the example set by 8 with its scope, diverse track design, and wealth of content, but carve a new, separate identity from it. Create a Mario Kart experience unlike anything we'd seen before. And thankfully, that seems to be World's mission statement. The Mario Kart Direct definitely didn't do it any favors, especially when Nintendo themselves were hyping up the very few reveals it did possess, but while the presentation didn't sell me on it anymore, it didn't detract from the excitement I already had for the release either. And that excitement was and is incredibly high. The novelty of track interconnectivity is impossible to diminish, and this is coming from someone who scoffed at the idea of open world Mario Kart before I saw it in action. The way they've integrated all of these tracks so seamlessly, the sense of adventure that now accompanies a regular Grand Prix, it's amazing. The size of the courses once seemed like it could be the game's downfall in the face of 8's incredibly tight track design, but this is compensated for with more interactivity than we've ever had before in the new tricking system. The diversity of movement that this allows for is something that I feel like we'll only truly grasp once we get our hands on the game, but the small taste that they provided is already proving to be some of the most dynamic Mario Kart gameplay ever. Full stop. All of that wrapped up in an additional chaos that only doubling the racers could provide, and what's seeming to be some of the best audio and visual presentation we've ever seen and heard from Nintendo, and it's hard not to feel the hype leading into the release, in spite of external issues. But as much as I'm looking forward to Mario Kart World, unfortunately, my issues with it aren't exclusively external. Battle mode is a big one, cutting Bob on Blast, Shine Thief, and Renegade Roundup from 8 Deluxe, a game that made a huge deal out of bringing battles back to how they should be, is not a good look for World, especially when one of the modes left over is Coin Runners, which no one has ever willingly played. But that isn't what we're here to talk about today. Today, we're talking about Mario Kart World's roster of characters. The racers in a Mario Kart game play a key role in dictating the game's identity, which may sound silly initially, because as far as gameplay is concerned, it really doesn't matter all too much outside of weight class. Double Dash aside, love you, this isn't like Smash Bros, where every character brings something undeniably unique to how you approach the game. More often than not, selecting a racer in Mario Kart just comes down to which one you like the most, or, if you want to be that guy, what's optimal. But in spite of that, the legacy of so many Mario Kart games is intertwined with what characters were present, or which ones were missing. Mario Kart 7's strange snubbing of Waluigi in favor of Honey Queen is still talked about to this day, mostly because it's really funny. Rob's inexplicable appearance in Mario Kart DS is similarly a point of discussion. It was weird and completely out of left field, which made it notable. And of course, Funky Kong as a character is forever tied to Mario Kart Wii. His most recognizable appearance is in a spin-off game from a franchise he doesn't even belong to. Mario Kart 8 was famously clowned on for its launch roster, which is 102% Koopaling with a 2% margin for error, but 8 Deluxe wound up with something incredibly beloved after the dust settled, with what's undeniably the best selection of characters this series has ever seen. All of that to say, while it's easy to dismiss the racers as entirely inconsequential, and I certainly wouldn't prioritize them over something gameplay essential like track design, I think there's an understated impact that they have to the overall feel of the game that shouldn't go unnoticed. Which brings us to Mario Kart World's roster, and to be upfront, it's not that bad. Really, don't take this as a sign that Nintendo betrayed us just because they put a Pokey in a car. Objectively speaking, by virtue of having such a large selection of characters, it kinda puts some other Mario Kart rosters to shame. We've seen 50 racers to this point, half of which have unique costumes, which to me is easily the most exciting aspect of this. A casual fan would likely struggle to find anything wrong with the roster presented. Unfortunately, I care about this way too much. I've got some problems with this roster, most of which probably fall under the nitpickery umbrella, but when has that ever stopped me? But before we go over what I think is missing here, I think it's important to discuss what we do have and why I take issue with it. With 50 confirmed characters, Mario Kart World stands 2 racers above 8 Deluxe, snatching its crown for the largest roster in the series' history. Unless you count this. You shouldn't. But in spite of the numbers, in spite of just how sizable this roster is, it doesn't feel like it has the excitement to match. If you had told me going into this game that there'd be 50 characters to choose from, I wouldn't ask for a single slot more. Well, Maybe I would, I don't know, kinda like asking for things. But the point is, it took Mario Kart 8 10 years and 3 different rounds of character additions to come close to this number. And even then, it's not like the roster was suddenly void of all the racers people complained about originally. We liked it because we had options, but the Koopalings, who admittedly have a more favorable opinion now than they did a decade ago, were still taking up their 7 slots. We still had 5 babies, 2 of which didn't exist until they were invented for Mario Kart. Baby Peach innocent though, someone's gotta rep the RPGs. Glorified skins like Tanuki Mario, Cat Peach, and the medals were given their own slots. And on top of that, we had the Nintendo drivers, who were awesome additions, but guests first and foremost, with no surefire path to appearing in the next entry. Except in the bad timeline. If you scrap every racer I just dissed, suddenly you're sitting at 30 characters again, and the prospect of a roster of 50 holds so much potential. And that's still the case if we kept that fan favorite of yours that I cut. I see you, singular Cat Peach enjoyer. No matter how you slice it, whether you're keeping 30 of these or 40, Mario Kart World had the opportunity to cut the fat and come out the other side with an incredible roster. And what did they do? It's all fat! Hey, look, all power to them for cutting the Koopalings when people had finally started to warm up to them, but I'm not sure if this is what fans had in mind when they complained about that squad of regularly appearing Mario enemies taking up slots on the roster. I'm sorry, but I can't remember the last time I felt this deflated by looking at a selection of new characters. And don't get it twisted, there are some bangers here. Nabbit is new to console Mario Kart and is a very appreciated addition considering Wonder established him as a 2D mainstay. As far as regular enemies go, Spike is my boy, and I have a whole point to make about Cataquack later. And of course, Cow. No notes. But the problem isn't so much the specific character selections as much as it is an excess amount of these specific character selections. A basic Mario enemy reaching playable status is often something to celebrate. It's the exact type of weird I was praising previously. Goomba getting into sluggers and playing a sport that's almost entirely comprised of hand usage is objectively hilarious. And Piranha Plant Smash inclusion, beyond being a statement on Sakurai's part, feels like a love letter to one of Mario's oldest and most versatile enemies. But the key here is moderation. So much of the identity of these characters comes from the novelty of, hey look, I'm playing as this basic Mario guy. So, having a roster full of them, while providing surface level variety, ironically deprives them of a lot of their appeal. Look at Mario Tennis Aces. People went nuts back at launch because out of a roster of 16, a Chain Chomp was a playable character. What a wacky inclusion. But if you bury him under a mountain of other Bowser baddies, well, now he's just another Mario enemy. And that's exactly what we're seeing with Mario Kart World. I'm sure that every character on this roster has its fans. I already made the mistake of assuming Super didn't have shooters, I won't make that mistake again. But generally, we're getting people latching onto certain standouts, Cow, Goomba, Penguin, while others who could be funny additions in a vacuum drown under the quantity. I've yet to see anyone go to bat for Sidestepper, or Parabitty Buddy, or Fishbone. Fishbone, they put a dead fish in the game before... We'll get there. Again, I know the fans are out there, I just haven't seen them. And from what they've shown so far, most of the basic enemy inclusions don't have additional costumes. Which makes sense, cause like, how? But all the more reasons to vouch for characters that could have had them. Which leads us to the point you were probably expecting. I don't know why Mario Kart is so allergic to original characters. I know it's been said, but dang it, I'm saying it again. And to me, the worst part about this isn't just the omissions, even though they sting. It's the landscape. It's that through years, decades of wider franchise snubbing, Mario Kart has fostered an environment where asking for original characters is wrong. You've seen the response. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like it's important on any grand scale, but why is it that daring to ask for Mario's wider history to be represented in Mario Kart is seen as unreasonable? And the generalizations here go crazy. You want Elvin Gad in the game? Well, suddenly you're campaigning for Nintendo to call up Square for the Geno collab, apparently. Be realistic, buddy. Mario Kart so rarely dips beyond the surface that requests just barely below it are scrutinized. Cappy is Mario's partner in the most recent and most successful 3D Mario game. Why can't he be here? Prince Florian? Same story. Tour introduced King Bob-omb, who yes, is an enemy, but one with purpose, a memorable role, and fans behind him. Would dropping Fishbone in favor of him really be all that bad? And if you allow me to indulge myself for a second, why not RPG characters? Really, the only argument I've seen is recognizability, but genuinely speaking, what casual fan is identifying Coin Coffer off rip? What tangible difference is there between Peepa, a character that's played a tiny role in multiple games, and Fawful, a character who played a major role in a single one? Sorta 2. 3 if you stretch the importance of Badge Dealer. They're even both dead. All of these characters, even the ones I've berated, have contributed something to this franchise. What reason is there for the absence of the original ones other than Mario Kart hasn't done it before? They also didn't do open world design until now. And that argument isn't even valid because they have done it before. We talked about Funky Kong's acclaim earlier. He doesn't even go to this school! Why is his presence permitted and celebrated, but other Mario characters aren't allowed to make the jump? And on the subject of Funky, he's not even here. A lot of important people aren't. I feel like my issues with the roster would be lessened if I was only disappointed with the lack of new original characters, but a lot of the old ones got snatched too. Diddy Kong, who debuted in Double Dash, gone. Petey's gone too. This one hurts. Kamek, who finally got his time in the sun after being scrapped from 64, reduced to item. And that's ignoring other really fun tour editions like Poochie and Diddy Kong. Hey, if you're gonna count it, I'm gonna use it. So many recognizable original faces that unfortunately just didn't make it over. Mario Kart World isn't just an incredible showing of innovation for the franchise, it's also a celebration. By virtue of being the first game in a decade, it kinda has to be. We've seen classic courses remixed and remade to extents beyond anything the series has ever pursued. We've seen the return of Mission Mode, a fan-favorite feature from DS that seems to be pushed even further through open world integration. And we've heard dozens of brand new arrangements of iconic music tracks, not just from Mario Kart, but from the entire franchise. It's all encompassing. Being the biggest and prettiest and potentially best Mario Kart experience clearly isn't something they're taking lightly. They know it's a triumph, it's written all over the presentation. And, you know, the price tag. It's just a shame that celebration had to end at the character roster. We could have had both. We could have had the comedic yet important representation of Mario's less appreciated but well-recognized enemy faces, while also dipping into the niche and the new to represent the scope of the franchise much more authentically. And I say niche very lightly here. Pianta and Cataquack feel like remnants of what could have been, strong, goofy, and purposeful additions that represent a specific point in Mario's history. Imagine if any species from Odyssey got that kind of love instead of falling off the face of the planet. We talked about the overlap of character rosters with overall game identity earlier, and unfortunately, solely based on how they presented Mario Kart World, I'm feeling a strong disconnect here. There's a Honey Queen where my Waluigi should be. Actually, I can't even make that joke anymore. I'd take Honey Queen over half of these. Also, wait, hold on. I almost forgot to mention. No Miis? Nintendo, you're giving me mixed signals here. What do you want from them?